welcome back to The Veggie. We are finally out of winter, spring has sprung, the sludge is gone, and there are some beautiful green vegetables on the horizon. So today I want to talk about a question I get every year this time of year, and that is about the CSA box. Typically, those questions sound a little bit like this. We do need some ideas for using chard without drowning it in cheese. I'm annually flummoxed over what to do with the bunches of salad turnips that I get early in the season. Susan's main CSA quandary is turnips, recipes that are cooked or stir-fried and that include fresh dandelion. A recipe that will make me excited to get beets in my CSA box again. That is a lot of ground to cover, but I have plenty of ideas. And first, I think we need to talk through what a typical springtime CSA box might actually look like. So you might be wondering, what is a CSA box? A CSA box stands for Community Supported Agriculture. Basically what it is a subscription service that you can sign up for with your local farm. If you go to the farmer's market, there are various farm stands there where maybe you can opt into a CSA, and that gets you a box of in-season vegetables, once every 2 weeks, once a month, depending on what you sign up for. You can get them in various different sizes, depending on the farm, but it is a great way to shop local and to constantly be eating seasonally. We have built a fake, very abundant springtime CSA box. When you get a CSA box, it might not look this full and it might not have everything in here at once, but this is typically a range of vegetables that you might see over the course of the spring months. Often what happens is you are confronted with a vegetable that you're not used to cooking with, that you don't really see for the other, 11 months of the year. So we're actually gonna talk through easy substitutions for very popular springtime produce. Let's talk through what's in the box. What's in the box? So we have some turnips, green garlic. We've got leeks. These are pea shoots, really beautiful. These are like a tender leafy green. Ooh. We have dandelion greens, also gorgeous, also a tender green. Then we have the hardier greens. We've got some Swiss chard. And then we have big, beautiful beets. And lastly, watercress, another nice, light, tender, fresh green. By the end of today, we are going to cook through everything in this box. Let's cook 5 recipes for my big, beautiful CSA box. Ugh. First recipe up is a miso rice cake with spinach and peas. And you might be thinking, Tanya, there was no spinach in your box. Pea shoots, we're gonna use pea shoots. And instead of garlic in the recipe, we are also going to use the green garlic that we got in the box. Easy swaps that are mentioned actually in the recipe, which Eleanor Park developed. So let's grab the stuff from the box that we need. Okay, our pea shoots, and we're gonna use our green garlic. This recipe uses frozen rice cakes, or deok. It's a Korean kind of spongy, absorbent rice cake. We have soaked them for a little bit and we're gonna stir fry them with our pea shoots, our garlic. We also have, these weren't in the box, but we got very lucky. We have fresh peas, which we will use in place of frozen, but frozen also works great here. And then we have some springy herbs as well. What are we doing first? I'm gonna just go ahead and prep the garlic. We're gonna chop this up too because we can add those in with our herbs at the end because we don't like waste here. And then just kind of get this prepped for sauteing. Soaking the onion. So we just got some red onion here and then some vinegar for kind of just a quick pickled onion, which will go on top at the end. So this is gonna soak while we cook everything else. And then the miso sauce is just miso, soy sauce, and water. And this is going to come together really, really fast. With all cooking, you really wanna have everything minced out and ready by the stovetop. In reality, I don't actually do that often, but with a recipe like this, I would. Okay, done. I'm gonna drain the rice cakes. Cook time. Got some olive oil, red onions, our green garlic, or use, regular conventional garlic if that's what you have at home. This, again, is really just a swap to show you all of the different ways to use things that you might see, not only in a CSA box, but just like when you go to the farmer's market and you get really jazzed about how beautiful everything is, everything's so green. You get really excited. Somehow you end up walking home with a tote bag full of $50 worth of farmer's market produce. These are the recipes to use that. Or even if you just see something at the grocery store that you aren't used to seeing and you want to try something new, this is not just for the CSA farmer's market set. This is just a great lesson in how to cook seasonally. Because it's spring and I'm tired of potatoes. There are 2 different kinds of rice cakes. You can get these disc kinds or you can get like longer, more tubular kinds. But if you see a recipe that calls for rice cakes, just double check. We do not mean the dry rice cakes that you would like spread peanut butter on. People have made that mistake before in the comments. I really feel for them. These are going in. And then our miso mixture. And then we're gonna bring this to a boil. Look at how bouncy it is. Do you see that? Ooh! And you wanna scrape the pan as this comes to a boil because this is gonna thicken a little bit, but trying to take care not to break up the rice cakes. Okay, peas are going in. Wow. If you were using frozen, you wouldn't need to put them in as long. Pea shoots are going in. Wow, this is a lot of pea shoots. Whoa. Oh God, this looks so good. You can use kind of any tender herb that you'd like. We have cilantro, dill, and mint because Eleanor said cilantro, dill, and mint, so why not all three? We're gonna put about half a cup of herbs in here, give it one more toss, and then we'll garnish with the rest of the herbs. Wow, this smells good. Excuse my French. This is gonna be, I think, maybe the most beautiful thing we've made so far. No tea, no shade to everything we've made, but this is really exceptional. I'm so excited. Okay, drizzle with our pickled onion, and then a bit more herbs. Green garlic too, I think that's gonna be really nice. Wow, have you ever seen something prettier? And don't say me. Oh, this is chili crisp. Just a little crunchy, spicy topping. Get a load of that. Oh, here we go, okay. Anyone who's watched a single one of these videos before has probably seen me eat in like a really disturbing way because I make the world's biggest bite because I want everything on it. But I'm trying to be a polite and gentle lady like I ever went to cotillion. I didn't. It's tangy and spicy and herbaceous and bouncy. You have like so many nice textures, obviously from the rice cakes, but also all of the fresh vegetables. These pea shoots, because they're so twisty and spirally, honestly cook up in a way that makes you want to twirl them like spaghetti, which I love. The peas are also really bright and bouncy, just like the rice cakes. You get a little bit of crunch from the pickled red onion. It rocks. Our next recipe is from Lex Wybel. It is a creamy Swiss chard pasta with tarragon, leeks, and lemon zest. It is a shoulder season pasta in that it brings us from winter into spring. It has some of those cozier comfort food feelings for still slightly chillier weather, but it's starting to bring in that fabulous spring produce that we look so forward to. So we must go back to our box now. So we have 2 leeks. We're getting a bunch of Swiss chard. Ooh. Wow, I feel so like homesteader coated. The sleeves aren't helping. Again, in the interest of smarter substitutions, because we have green garlic already, we are gonna use some more in place of conventional garlic. Okay, come with me. I want to do a bit of a leek PSA because this is really important when you come home with a leek and you think that maybe you don't need to wash it clearly. If a recipe says like, clean your leeks really good and you're like, I don't need to do that, you do. Look at that, disgusting. A lot of the dirt gets stuck kind of all the way through. So even if you like washed the outside and then you decided to like thinly cut it and saute it, you will find that the thinly sliced pieces, if they weren't washed all together, are going to contain a lot of like sand and sediment. But what you wanna do is prepare the leeks according to the instructions, and then you wanna put them all into a bowl, sliced, rinse them under water, drain the water, rinse them again. You might even wanna put them in a sieve and make sure that they are really clean. Otherwise, you will be eating dirt. All right, now we have some movie magic. We're gonna make some pasta, so we've got some water boiling on the stove, and we're gonna prep our Swiss chard. I am just removing the more tender leafy greens from the Swiss chard stems. I'm gonna thinly slice these up, and they will be sauteed with some of the leeks and longer cooking components of this recipe. And then the leafier greens, we're just gonna kind of rip up into big chunks. Okay, let's talk substitutions actually. Collard greens. You could use Tuscan kale. You could use kind of any vegetable that grows on like a big stalk like this and has big leafy bits. Pretty interchangeable. Thinly slice the stems. Just gonna thinly slice our green garlic in place of the conventional stuff. I don't need to do too much because we have those leek greens, although again, you could cut these up for garnish if you'd like. We have our leeks, finely chopped, not dirty. And then we're gonna make breadcrumbs. We're toasting our panko in a little bit of butter. Is this thing on? Yeah, this is almost, we're getting closer now. Okay, off heat, we are going to add our nutritional yeast. Whoa, that's a lot. Wow. Look at that. I want to eat all of this. All right, in the pan goes more butter. Then we have our leeks and also our garlic, or in this case, green garlic that I cut up and put on top of the leeks, and our chard stems, and some thyme. Yeah, it's a lot of vegetables, but this is veggie. Yeah, honestly, if you were watching these episodes being like, damn, that cooks with a lot of tofu and beans, do I have news for you? Despite appearances, this is vegetable stock, so we're gonna add veggie stock and heavy cream to the Swiss chard, and it's gonna bubble and reduce and become so delicious. And this is gonna be operating as our pasta sauce. That looks so good to me. Beautiful. Pasta time. This is fettuccine. Linguine. This is linguine. A linguine. Ha. Sauce is getting nice and reduced. And the pasta is gonna be done in 1 minute. We will drain it, and then we will add the sauce to this pot, and then the pasta into that pot with the sauce. And then we'll add some cheese and be kind of done. Parmesan. Stir vigorously. Let's plate her up. And then we have our nutritional yeast breadcrumbs, some fresh tarragon, and then the zest of a lemon. Beautiful, gorgeous. Oh, that's so good. That rips. You've got your creamy greens, you've got your softened leeks, nice and oniony and gentle. You got a bite of breadcrumbs on every strand of noodle. Can I get a close up? Look at that distribution. This could feed a family of 800 people. What's the actual serving size? 4 to 6?
4.
This serves 4? Yeah, 4 linebackers maybe. This is a lot of pasta that makes great use of a lot of greens, and it's so freaking delicious. I cannot get over it. Who wants to try some? Next up, we have a soup recipe from Martha Rose Schulman. This is a Provençal green soup, and this gives us plenty of opportunities for substitutions, but also just for abundance. You can use one type of green if that's all you have, but we have a variety of types of greens. So we're actually gonna pull a little bit of everything into this soup. Let's go to the box. Okay, leeks, we're gonna grab some Swiss chard. We're also gonna grab dandelion greens. Beautiful. Green garlic. I don't remember how many, so I'm just gonna grab. I'm getting word from headquarters that it's 2 green garlic. We're gonna grab the beets because this recipe you can use beet greens as well. Watercress. All of these greens are gonna go in here in various amounts because we need 6 cups of chopped greens. All right, so that's a cup of chard. Let's do a cup of dandelion greens. You could absolutely cook the stems in here. I'm just trying to get as much of the leafy greens as possible to use them up toward our 6-cup measurement that I am completely eyeballing, and then this will definitely be more than 6 cups, but who cares, it's my soup. These beets are going to be saved for a different recipe, but let's get some of the really nice greens. And for this recipe, if you have to choose just one vegetable, go all in on Swiss chard. Oftentimes you'll see a recipe that calls for the white and the light green parts of the leeks, but there are ways to use some of these firmer green bits. You don't want to use the very, very ends because they get quite fibrous, but this recipe uses a decent amount of the darker green part, as you can see here. Color match, we chopped those up, and they now are before me. And then we're just gonna chop up our green garlic. Now, we sauté. We're gonna heat up some olive oil in this pot, and we're gonna stir fry, or rather saute our leeks, add our garlic. We're adding a 1/2 teaspoon of salt to our leeks. Gonna give that a stir. We're gonna add these greens kind of a handful at a time until they wilt, and then we are going to add the water. There's no stock in this recipe because you really wanna let the flavor of the greens shine. It just keeps the broth like light and clean. All right, sufficiently wilted. Now we're adding 6 cups of water. His hair. Wait. Okay, this is just starting to come up to a simmer. So once we got those bubbles coming in a little aggressively, I'm going to cover it and let it go for about 15-20 minutes. We are adding eggs to the broth here because, as you might remember, the broth is entirely just water. What that does is it adds richness, it thickens the soup, it adds kind of creaminess without necessarily adding cream. We are going to whisk these eggs in a bowl, and then we need to temper them. And actually, before I'm gonna do that, I need to add some pepper to the broth first. We are going to just quickly beat these. So we are raising the temperature of the eggs by adding a little broth at a time. This ends up matching the temperature of the soup so that when we add the tempered eggs into the broth, it blends seamlessly into the rest of the broth. Now we're gonna make a little bowl soup. I'm gonna top mine with a good bit of Parmesan. And we've got bread here that we toasted and then rubbed a garlic clove on. That is, to me, the easiest way to elevate a piece of toast. It's also what you would do with like a pan con tomate. You should do it to all of your bread, frankly. It's really just like of the vegetables, which sounds kind of silly, but it just tastes very wholesome and lightly garlicky from all of the leeks. You can tell from the broth, like, it looks like it's a stock that has been going for a really long time. It's got a bit of body, but it's just from those 2 eggs. Nice little trick. This is like packed with greens. This is like 1 spoonful and you get, you know, a Popeyes approved level of greens. Like if I were to make this at home, I would feel better than everybody else for eating it. So we are going to head back to the box because we're going to make a no-cook recipe. This will be a beet dip that I'm really excited about that Tejal Rao adapted from the restaurant Botanica in LA. So let's go get some beets. We need 1 garlic green, 1 green garlic, and a bunch of baby beets, some that I cut the beet green tops off of for the soup. But we're gonna use the rest of the beets. Okay, come on. For this recipe, we are using raw beets. So what you'll wanna do is peel these beets until they look like beautiful little gemstones. You can cut off the beet tops. You could use these in salads. You could stir fry them. I got a rogue dandelion green. That's really good. Okay, peel our beets. Movie magic. Bring the beet in. The beet dip itself is kind of based off of the Middle Eastern dip mara, but we are using raw beets in place of red peppers. This dip on its own is vegan, but we will be serving it with some olive oil and some labneh. So if you wanted to use a vegan yogurt or something like that, you absolutely could. Okay, onward. Just gonna do a rough chop. And the food processor is gonna, because these are raw, gonna need a minute with all of this, but it will puree. You simply must trust the process. Into the pot. This can be kind of a rougher chop because it's just gonna go into the food processor. Beet time. Okay, so we have our chopped beets, then we have our walnuts, but also instead of conventional garlic, we are again using green garlic. Then we have a bit of lemon juice, we have some chili flakes, have some salt, and then we have a bit of pomegranate molasses, which is really great. It will add both kind of acidity and a bit of sweetness here. You ready? Lock in. It's getting there though. It's just gonna probably take a couple of times. We are adding half a cup of olive oil, and this will really get this dip smooth and emulsified. All right, let's plate her. So we are going to spoon some of our labneh. Now, the art of the plate swoop. It's all about turning your plate as you go and making kind of a well for your beet. And then we are going to spoon over our beet dip. You wanna make some nice little whooshes in here because we're gonna drizzle over some olive oil. And then we're gonna top it with some more chopped walnuts, a little bit of pepper, and then finally some fresh lemon zest. That's so pretty. Do I want a cucumber or do I want a pita? That's really good. Nice and puckery from the lemon juice, the raw beet itself. You've got the pomegranate molasses in there too. And that kind of like cheek sucking feeling that you get immediately is mellowed out by the olive oil and the labneh and the milder walnuts. It's really delicious. Pita time. Oh, don't watch me do this. Dip, done. We have one recipe left and only a few more items in our box. We're gonna use them all up in Hetty Lou McKinnon's Turnips with whipped pistachio feta. This is really, really springy. You can use turnips if you see those at the market or at the grocery store or get them in a CSA box, but you could also use radishes, which are really popular this time of year. And you will also use the turnip greens, which is something that has come up in reader emails to me in the past. You can also use baby spinach, pea shoots, remember those from earlier. You can use whatever tender leafy greens you have on hand. For one last time, let's go to the box. We have 2 bunches of turnips with like some of the most beautiful turnip greens I've like ever seen in my whole life. We're gonna split this in half and it is gonna go a long way because as we mentioned, it's like punchy and garlicky and delicious. And with that, get a load of the box. All right, we CSA'd. Let's make some turnips. So first order of business, as I mentioned, we will be using the turnip tops. So we're gonna separate them from the root vegetable, set those aside. That's just a holding place. That's just radish jail. Turnip jail. This is more of just a personal preference. I love this little guy. Like I don't cut this off. I think it looks cute. So you can cut that off if you want to, but I'm gonna leave it on there. Oh my God. 4 hours of me slicing turnips. I'm losing it. And then I'm just gonna cut off the bottoms of these turnip greens. We just need the kind of leafier parts. This could be used and sauteed in other things if you'd like to. We are going to add a spot of olive oil. I'm gonna get that hot for a second and then we will add our turnips. And a big pinch of pepper. While the turnips are going, we are going to make our whipped feta. This will be very quick. So we have feta, parsley, then we have pistachios and the bit of green garlic that I chopped up for the whip. And then we've just got lemon juice, olive oil, and a spot of water. And we're gonna give this a whirl until it's nice and smooth. Multitasking. Okay, so our turnips are nicely cooked, and to finish them off, we are going to add butter and miso and the garlic. And then we will toss these glazed turnips with the turnip greens as a salad topping to put over the whipped feta, which is so nice. And now we can assemble our dish. The turnips smell really nicely sweetened, and the heat from them is just ever so slightly, I wouldn't even say wilting the turnip greens, but they're just softening them slightly as they get a bit of that butter and miso mixture coated on the leaves. So that's really nice. So I'm going to take some of our whipped feta and again, like our beet dip, smear it nicely on the plate. Look how pretty. What is the perfect bite? Mmm, yum. Tastes like spring. Aw, a nice note to end on. But the radishes came out, whoops, so nicely. They're nicely caramelized, still have a bit of crunch. And this is just like a great way to use your turnip greens. You can use them as salad greens. You're getting kind of almost like a green goddess effect by swooping the lettuce through the whipped feta. And then obviously pistachios for crunch. The bite on the turnips is really nice. They're cooked perfectly. We did it. Box check. That's a clean box. We cooked so many leeks. We cooked so much Swiss chard. We cooked green garlic, we cooked beets, we cooked turnips. We really made great use of 3 kinds of produce you might see a lot in the springtime. Your alliums, your fun, sweeter root vegetables, and your big leafy greens. And I think we have a really nice assortment of recipes before us that show the range of those vegetables, that give you ample opportunities to substitute what you have at home or what's in front of you at the store. And I think this is the perfect assortment of dishes to get really, really jazzed about the springtime, because I don't know about y'all, but this was a rough winter and I could not be more excited to get my like farmer's market tote bag moment on and make all of these back at home. If you have more questions for me about vegetarian cooking, you know where to find me. I'm in the Veggie. You can email me at theveggie@nytimes.com. Send me a voice memo. I'd love to hear your voice asking me a question, and you might hear it on a future episode of this series. So thanks for watching. Happy spring. Et voilà!